Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're going to get started here in a few minutes. Thanks for your patience. We're letting Jackie get settled. There's our painting. So if you want to get your supplies out and ready, we'll get started here in a few minutes as we let everyone join. If you want to drop in the comments where you're joining us from, it'd be great to hear from you. And if you have any questions throughout Jackie's presentation, you can just drop them in the chat and we'll respond to you there. It just might be easier if we keep everyone muted throughout so that they can hear Jackie and that there's no confusion. So we'll get started here in just a few minutes. All right, I see a few more people have joined. Like I said, if at any point you have questions or comments to make, please feel free to put them in the chat, or you're welcome to come off mute to ask a question, but we do ask that you try to remain on mute throughout the event, just to make it a little easier for everyone to hear and follow along. So Jackie, if you're ready.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful.
And Kate, you can stop share. And then there's the painting. All right, guys, have fun. I'll be here to answer questions that come through on the chat. Thanks, Jackie.
All righty. Thank you all for being here tonight with me. As you are getting set up in your own little area, take a look at the painting. That's just a little sketch of what we're about to do. And I will say, if you've painted with me before, this might be the most challenging one we've done. So pour your adult beverage and take a deep breath. It's going to be fine, I promise. Some of you might be asking what paint colors I have. I typically always have in my fancy palette lots of white paint, blue paint, a little bit of red, a little bit of yellow, a little bit of black. Okay, those are all the colors that we need to mix green and tan and things like that. You might have your own green at your disposal and your own tan, and that's great. As they mentioned, if you do have questions throughout the painting, try to drop it in the chat, and someone should be monitoring that and being able to help you out. What else as we are getting set up? I have big brush and little brush, relatively speaking. I've got paper towels at the ready. I have a mug of water to rinse my brushes, and a lot of times people ask, do I have to wet my brush before I put it in the paint? And you don't. If you want to, that's totally fine. I don't really do that. But if you haven't already, again, maybe take a little snapshot of the painting. I'm pretty sure you can do a Google image search of this as well. That's where I got it from. So we are setting ourselves up for success for a challenging but really fun painting, and we will go through step by step, and yeah, we're gonna have fun, I promise. All right, and I do like watching all of you paint, so I will take some time to kind of scroll through the videos. I love peeking in your little living rooms and your little studios there. All right, I think I've talked enough and maybe given people enough time to get settled. So I'm going to take down our little reference painting here. And we're gonna start out real nice and easy. We're gonna lean it, we're gonna warm up slowly into this. I'm going to take my big brush and we're going to start out nice and easy. Lots of white paint, and I'm just going to cover the whole canvas with white paint. And if you've painted with me before, this might not surprise you, but some people always say, why are we painting white on white? Well, we want to get nice and blendy with our background. We're going to start with our background with our sky. And this comes right out of the Bob Ross handbook. With a wet on wet technique, he used oil, I'm using acrylic. But to get that nice blendy sky, I'm going to load up my canvas with white paint. You can do any kind of brush stroke you like. I'm just feeling a little crisscrossy stroke here, but you can do, you know, long, broad, horizontal or vertical strokes. Totally up to you. But I do want to make sure that paint stays pretty wet. Oops, looks like I grabbed some red by accident. Oops. And depending on your paint might be drying quite quickly. So for example, if you have a craft acrylic, is that static me? Oh, I don't think that's somebody else. If you have a craft acrylic, those are very watery and they might dry real quick on you, so you might have to move fast. I don't think you can see it on the screen, but I'm picking up some red, so just ignore that if you do see it. And I'm just going to work this all the way down. In addition to making it easier for us to blend, covering it in white paint also, there's a lot of white paint on my floor now. Whoops, take care of that later. Painting the canvas with white first also makes painting easier. Even after it dries, it takes away some of that rough texture of the canvas. All right. As I mentioned, this putting down all this white paint is so that we can get blendy. So I am going to move on to my next step pretty quickly. If you're not all covered yet on your canvas with white, that's totally fine. We will make sure that you that we take a little pause here and there to make sure you're caught up. But I don't want my paint to dry, so I'm going to jump right into my next step. And if we go back to the reference painting, I'm working on this sky in the background, okay? And I want to focus on making sure sort of the central area of my sky is very, very light, okay? It's almost pure white. And that's going to help make the We Are sculpture stand out. All right, so just kind of take a note of the reference sketch here is that a lot of our blue is on the right, and then it's very, very bright in the center, and towards the left is fairly light as well. So having said all that, the name of the game here is very, very, very little blue paint, okay? If you've painted with me before, you know the technical term here is a smidgy smooch of paint. I'm just going to dip the corner of my brush in some blue. I did not clean my brush, by the way, in case you were wondering. I still have that white paint on my brush. That's exactly what I want. That's going to help calm the blue down so I don't go crazy. If you have a big glop of paint on your brush, you can wipe that off. But I just want a little smidgy smooch of blue, and I'm just going to start kind of swishing this on crisscrossies. It's going to be so light, it might be difficult for you to see it on the video screen there. But we can always add more blue. It is harder to take it away. And have fun with this, okay? This is where we get to relax. We can't really go wrong with the sky. I know some of you are thinking, I can mess up the sky, don't you worry. But yeah, we're just having fun. We're starting out really relaxed with our background here. And my, that central area that I want to keep pretty bright and light, it's hardly got any blue in it. I'm just barely touching it with the blue. If you went in a little too hot with the blue paint and you think, oh boy, that's too dark, don't worry, have no fear. You can wipe off any excess blue from your paintbrush, grab some more white and work that in. You can even, with a clean brush, kind of scrape off any of that extra blue paint that you got going on. A question you might be having is how far down or how much of this blue are we going to use on the whole canvas? And I would say go a little bit lower than halfway down. We don't have to go all the way to the bottom, but we do want to make sure we don't leave any holes as we get towards where the horizon and the buildings and the grass are. And we're just having fun blending our sky. Doing any brush strokes that you like. All right, I think, do I want to go down just a little bit more? I don't know. I think I'm all right. Might as well add a little more. All right, so that is what I've got going on. And when you are done with your sky, you can wipe off any excess paint on a paper towel and then give your brush a good clean rinse. I am gonna take a little pause here to make sure that everybody feels like they can catch up and I'm not rushing too much. I do know that I tend to go fast. I try really hard not to, but I will take a pause here. I'm gonna wipe off the excess paint from my brush and give it a rinse. Wiping off the excess paint not only saves the life of your cup of water, but it will extend the life of your brush and your brushes. So you're not needing to go too crazy taking that paint off. All right, I'm just going to take a little look at your videos just to peek in your homes. I always say I love watching people paint, and it's true. So don't be shy about your videos. I do like seeing everybody's paintings. Beautiful, love it. Yes. Awesome work. Love it, love it. All right, I'll be back in 2 minutes. I don't know if you can hear my son crying. I'm gonna go make sure he's doing good. He's with dad right now, but I can't help myself. I'm gonna go see how he's doing. So just take a couple minutes, finish up your sky and wash up your brush, and I'll be back in a flash. All right. So my son, Jack, just recently turned 9 months old, and we were blessed with a really easy baby. And only recently has he started like crying for no apparent reason. So, and he's my first child. So I'm like, I don't know what's happening. But God bless you all who had cranky, fussy babies. All right. I see some people still working, so we will sit tight here for a minute or so. Finish rinsing off my brush. And in case you are done, I'm just going to go back to our sketch here and explain what we're going to be working on next. And that is, I know I feel like he's been teething for months, but we have no sign of anything erupting yet. So yeah, we're doing, thank you, home, for your comment. Yeah, it might be time for him to have some chompers start coming out. We shall see. All right, so the next step that we're going to be doing here are these gray buildings in the background. And as you can see, they're very simple, okay? So we're not going to worry and fret too much on exactly what those buildings look like. I just want to kind of give the indication that there are, you know, things going on in the background. So I would say don't worry about, you know, having an architectural kind of drawing back there. It's just to give the sense that, you know, there is some campus back there, but I wouldn't worry too much about exact shapes. In fact, I don't know what the buildings actually look like, but these are just my little interpretations. And to make that color, that's just a little gray, and you can change the tone of your gray by adding a little red if you wanted, and a little bit of yellow if you wanted, but any old gray will do. Okay, and that's going to be our next step. I'm going to check to see if people are still working, but if you're ready to move on, you can give a thumbs up. As I just take a look at, you see a couple of thumbs up. Yeah, I think we're, for the most part, ready to move on. And I think some people came in late and you guys might not be ready, but that's okay. I can try to talk a lot. All right. So once again, we are going to work on these buildings that we've got going on in the background. And I'm just going to mix a neutral gray. So gray is white with a smidgy smooch of black to start. Little black will go a long way. And to kind of warm that gray, I can add a little smidgy smooch of red and a little smidgy smooch of yellow, and that will warm it up a bit. Okay. And just play around with it, get whatever kind of gray that you like. Again, I would start lighter than you think, and we can always darken it. We can always make it darker. All right. So I want to make sure I'm leaving myself the center pretty free of anything, because I want to make sure I can take care of the sculpture really nicely there. So I don't want to muddy it up too much. So as you can see, I've got this building coming off on the right, and that is, hopefully you can see, just below center, right? And it's kind of a, what shape is that? A rhombus, a trapezoid? I don't remember. But I'm just gonna put this box thing over here just to give myself an idea. doesn't have to be perfect at this point. I just want to give myself an idea of where things are starting to exist in this painting. Okay. And again, the lighter, the better, because we can always make it darker. We can fix things that we're not too excited about. And then on the left side, I've got kind of these 3 rectangles. Okay. And then there's some empty space over here. Again, we're just giving kind of the idea that there's buildings back here. Not going to get too worked up about exactly what they are or what they look like. The important thing is that we are sculpture, and we want everything else to kind of blend and fade away into the back anyway. So I've come out with something like that. In fact, that reminds me of, I don't know if everybody's phone camera on their phone is like this, but in portrait mode, it kind of like blurs out the background a little bit. And that's kind of what we're going for. We want this stuff to kind of melt away in the back so we can focus on the we are, and probably the tree too, because who doesn't love a tree? And happy trees at that. All right. So I feel pretty good about just the location of where those are. And then what I can start doing is adding just a little bit of kind of shadows and textural things. Okay. So that would mean I'm just darkening up the gray that I'm working with. And just play around with, I've got these vertical lines coming in here, some horizontal. Okay. Again, I'm not too worried about what, architecturally what this is. Just kind of indicating some shadows. All right. And the good news here is that if you don't like these buildings that you've made, if you cover them with trees and foliage, no one's going to notice. We're just going to blend right into the background. Oop, that was dark. Let's blend that out. All right. So it's looking very abstract, kind of dreamlike right now. The city floating in the sky. Let me take a little look around here, see how everybody's doing. Oh, it looks like we got a whole squad over there at Sean Wolf's house. That's awesome. Hi. Love it. It looks like Jeff and Helen Remington are having date night. Love it. Excellent. And I will pause here to give everybody a chance to continue working. Our next step is going to be oh gosh, I should know this. What is the thing that the sculpture, is it a pediment? Did I just make that up? The base that the sculpture sits on will be next, and kind of the sidewalk or pavement around it. So that's what we're doing next. just to give you an idea of where we're headed. That will be a tan, more of a tan brownish color. And I'll explain how to mix that up. But I am gonna hang on to the gray on my brush for now. So you don't have to worry about rinsing that off. I'm gonna actually kind of use the gray on my brush as like a pencil to sketch out that base. Yes, Melissa, you will be able to watch it later. And I think that you'll be notified, or correct me if I'm wrong. You'll be notified later as to where you can catch that. All right, I'm gonna take a look and see how everyone's doing. I see some folks are still working, but if you're ready to move on, give me a thumbs up so I can get a sense. Oh, I see, looking good. I think we're all still working. I do see some thumbs up. Looking good. All right, so I'm gonna do a little bit of talking, again, just to kind of stall some time here. Again, I'm just gonna keep that gray on my brush, and I'm gonna use that color to lightly sketch my next moves here. Again, to help myself figure out where everything is in space, okay? So what we're working on is this base, okay? The base that the sculpture sits on, and then the kind of pavement beside it, okay? And we're gonna break this down into simple lines and shapes, okay? But I will bring your attention to kind of in relation to the buildings where this thing exists. So if you look at the sketch, the back edge, which is this one right here, the back edge of the base is pretty much in line with the, I guess the horizon line where the buildings sit on the green, on the grass, okay? So that's kind of, I'm giving myself an idea of where the back of that base is. So with my gray, I'm just gonna give myself that line, not worrying about how long it is just yet, but just giving myself a sense of where that part of the base is. Again, that's the back end of the top of the base that is going away from us, okay? And then I'm going to give myself a parallel line for the front edge of the top of the base, okay? So we're getting a little lesson in perspective here. And because I'm using such a light gray, I'm not worried about, how long my lines are. In fact, an architect might pull these all the way up to edge, right? That's just to give myself an idea, okay? And then I clip the sides at an angle, right? something like that. And I'll stop right there. I won't, yeah, I'll stop right there and kind of recap what I just did. So two parallel lines. I'm giving myself, see, I'm on a, depends on what size your canvas is. I'm giving myself a wider band at the bottom than is the top of the base. So you see down here is bigger than up here. I gave myself these two parallel lines, and then I clipped off the ends here to show the top of the base of the sculpture. And that gives us that perspective that this is moving backwards towards the horizon line. And these ends I'm not going to worry about. We can color over those later. You can go over them with white right now if they're bob, or you can put gray right on it. But you can buff those out later. Wouldn't worry about those ends. All right, so again, two parallel lines, cut off the ends. And then the very pointed ends at the bottom, you just go straight down, perpendicular to the bottom of the canvas. And that is the front wall, I guess, of the base. Okay. So basically I've just pulled down these two sides, looking at the original sketch. Okay. Oh, you can't see the bottom, huh? Let's see why that's happening. Let's try this. All right, that should be better. Okay. That looks a little better. All right. The next couple of lines I'm going to throw in here are this line, which is where the sidewalk is. So these little triangles are basically the pavement. And I'm just going to extend that out like that. It looks kind of weird. So if you're looking at your painting like, this is weird, what is happening? A lot of our work here tonight is going to be, this is weird. This doesn't look right. So don't you worry. It's going to be weird for a little bit. All right, once we've kind of planned those lines out, let's go ahead and fill in everything that we've done. So this is going to be this dark tan, okay? I'm actually going to fill in everything with this tan color, and then I'm going to go over some bits with white. And to get that tan, it's kind of like a gray, a very light gray, so lots of white. And I'm going to add little smidgy smooches of red and yellow. So it's kind of like an orange plus gray. And you just play around with it. Again, some of you might already have a tan color at your disposal. But the idea here is orange plus gray. So that's red and yellow plus white and black. Just gonna keep playing with that until I get something that I like. Let's see, I don't think that's what I want, but I'm gonna give it a whirl. Yeah, that's a little too blue for my liking. I'm gonna keep trying. And again, I'm just gonna cover this front wall or face of this vase here. And keep trying to work on that tan color. And I'm gonna color in that whole front piece. It's like a long skinny rectangle. Out of my easel for a minute here. Gosh, on the video that looks really dark, but it's not really looking that dark in my home here. See if I can lighten that up. Almost there. I'm not going to worry too much about that. But the idea here is that the top of this base here is that same color, but just with a lot of white. So I'm going to take care of that now. Just kind of quickly sketch the top, fill in the top here. So again, that same color, but with lots more white in it. And same thing with the pavement beside it. It's just that lighter version. And again, things are going to look pretty rudimentary and wonky for a little bit. But once we start, building this up with our foliage and greenery, I promise you it will come together. Those of you who have painted with us before know that it usually feels weird and wonky, and then it sort of comes together in the end. And we will make these shapes more distinct with some lining later on. So you see there's this nice line in the front there. So don't worry if your shapes are getting lost. We are going to kind of make them a bit more distinct later on. It's like a final touch. All right, I'm going to pause here and do a bit of talking, just to kind of do a little self-assessment as to where things are on the canvas, to make sure moving forward things are not going to look kind of impossible physically in a physics type of sense. So again, the top of that base right here is pretty much, not necessarily perfectly, but in line with the bottoms of those structures. Okay. So what I've got left in terms of like white space are these little wedges here. Okay. So you probably have something similar. You might have blue that goes all the way down, and that's totally fine. But I don't want too much gappage between the base of those buildings and the base for the sculpture. Okay. So if you have things in different orientation or different composition, don't worry, but this is kind of basically where we want to be for the steps moving forward. Oops. All right. I am going to wash off or wipe off my brush here from any excess paint. I'm going to give my brush a nice, good, clean rinse in my mug of water. And we're going to have some fun. This is the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add some green, some foliage, the grass. And this should be a fun part where we're kind of seeing the landscape, the space come together. So just wiped off any excess paint from my brush, giving it a good clean rinse. I'm going to take a pause and make sure that we are ready to move on. So give me a thumbs up if we think we can proceed. Good. All right, maybe I'll just take a little bit more of a pause. Some people seem to still be working. So in the meantime, I can certainly yap a little bit more. I'm going to start with a light green, and that's going to be my grass. Okay. Again, we can always make things darker. It's harder to make things lighter. It's harder to take away. So I want this nice bright green grass. So in my world, I've got blue and yellow, so I have to mix my own green. So my light green is going to be, I'm going to add more yellow to it to get a lighter, brighter green. And then as I get or want to have darker greens, I'm going to either add more blue or a smidgy smooch of black to my green. But as you can see in the sketch, there's just lots of different kinds of greens happening. Okay. All right. So I'm going to start real simple in terms of what I'm painting. I'm starting with that grass, and I'm basically all I need to do is just fill in these wedges here. First, I'm going to whip up some of this light green, blue and yellow, and I'm just going to start filling in just with some straight green here. Just filling it in. Okay. And already we should kind of be able to get a sense of, okay, this is a landscape. This is real life. We have some perspective here. And what's more is I can kind of get a sense that I got a little bit of green before we get to the letters of the sculpture. So instead of just having harsh lines, I can start playing around with texture. And for me, I like always using a tap, tap, tap with my brush just to kind of see what happens. And this is, again, we're melting into the background. Is it a tree? Is it a bush? Is it a shrubbery? It doesn't matter. It's just going to create a sense of landscape back there and landscaping. And so basically all I'm doing is just giving some little textures here and there. I'm not going to worry about the green behind the sculpture. Okay. Again, because I want to be able to make sure I'm setting myself up for seeing really clearly the shape of those letters. So I'm just gonna leave that open for now, and we will tend to that later, the actual green that's poking through. Having said that, I am going to start mixing up a darker green. So a little bit more blue, a little smidgy of black. And this is just going to help create some depth. And I'm going to focus those darker greens right along that horizon line. That helps kind of set that back in space. Again, just using the bristles as your tool, you know, just a little tap, tap here. And we can take care of that. Our tree, we'll do our tree last, making sure we're giving ourselves space for the sculpture. All right, I'm going to pause here, making sure everyone has a minute to catch up. Our next step is going to be to draw in a very, very light gray or a light blue even. We're just going to sketch out the lettering, okay? So let's take a little breather pause. Now is a good time to get more adult beverage, use the restroom if you need to. And highly recommend, if you've got a pen or pencil and paper, kind of with a pen or pencil first, drawing out the shape of this, and I will take you through step by step, okay? But I am going to wash off my brush, and we can take a little pause before we continue. You can, if you want to draw on the canvas with pencil, you certainly can do that. I won't be doing that. I think it's easier to just mix up your own very, very light gray or a light blue, something that's like barely visible, but just so you can plan things out. I don't like using pencil because it's harder to fix on the canvas, but if you use a very, very light color, we can fix and cover it. But pencil, I find, is difficult to you know, tend to those mistakes. And now is also the time when you might want to decide what brush you'd like to use. If you have a whole bunch of brushes in your arsenal, pick one that you think you can do fine lines with. Any flat angled brush is my choice here for a fine line, because I can just use the tippity tips of the bristles. So flat and angled will be your best friend, but whatever brush that you prefer, you like, I would figure out what you're going to use, and then give it a little test run on a piece of paper, or paper plate works, just to kind of see, you know, how steady does my hand need to be, and how much pressure do I need to put on the canvas. All right. Now would be a nice time if you want to hold up your painting so we can see what we've got so far. This is always my favorite part, as you know, if you've painted with me before. Oh, love it. Look. Yes, love it. I love it. Oh, Lori Kennedy, it's all blurry. You must have that feature on your Zoom. So it's blurry. It's very Monet. Looking good. Oh, yes. Team Sean Wolf, how are we doing? How are we doing? Nice. Looking good. Looking good. Awesome. Awesome. These look great. Oh my gosh. I'm excited. Y'all are doing great. Oh, y'all are doing great. These look great. There it is. Now I see it. Looking good. Hey, thanks for joining me for a really challenging painting. These are awesome. Looking good. All right, I'm going to do a bit of talking again to make sure people have time to catch up. But if we consider the We Are sculpture, it looks really complicated. And that's, I think, part of the beauty of it. It looks really complicated, but in reality, the 3D shape is like a trifold. So humor me, the teacher in me is going to come out. So it's basically a trifold sitting up on its base here. Okay. So it's kind of like this, right? Part of the W and the A are on this first side. The rest of the W and the R are here. And the two E's are on this third piece. So if this visual helps you, good. If it doesn't, then forget everything I've just said. But this is basically the shape. All right. And then our challenge is to put this gorgeous 3D shape onto a 2D surface. Okay. And that's intimidating, but we can do it. And we're going step by step. And a key piece of advice is try to keep the judgment out of our current endeavor right now, right? So don't judge yourself and say, oh, this is terrible, this isn't working. Just kind of try to go with the flow. And remember that this is just lines and paint and we're having fun. Again, if you missed it and you wanted me to say it again, the basic sculpture is a trifold, okay, with part of the W and the A on this side, the rest of the W and the R in the middle, and then the two E's on the third face there, okay? So when I talk about a crease, I'm going to be talking about, these creases here, all right? All right. As we look at our canvases, which have a nice, beautiful opening for our sculpture to sit, let's plan the height and the width of our sculpture here, okay? Again, looking at our sketch, it takes up a big piece of our canvas here. So don't be shy about going almost to the tippity top of your canvas, okay? And obviously width-wise, we want to keep it on the base that we've given ourselves. So just as a guide for myself, I'm going to make little dots, and I guess I'll try to make them as dark as possible so you can see them. But I'm just going to give myself 4 little points that indicate the outer points of this sculpture, just so I know where this lives. And pretty much we're working with a square, If I wanted to crop, this as a photo, this would just be like a little square, okay? All right, so I'm going to do a light blue as my guide color. I'm going to start down here. Let's see, the little N is about here. And the E comes out about here. All right, and I want to go as high as here and as high as here. Okay, so I've just given myself, this is my square, this is where I live. Okay, so I'm going to keep the sculpture in there, so to speak. All right, and I wouldn't give I wouldn't mark as dark a dots as I did. I did that so you can see them, hopefully. Okay, but I will again keep my lines darker than you should, just so you can see it on the video. All right. All right, again, as I mentioned, this is a trifold. So I'm going to give myself little guides. How much room from the top? Oh, you can't see the top of the painting. I'll figure this out eventually. We got this. I'm on 11 by 14 canvas, and I've got like a ½ an inch to an inch at the top. Okay. Really, it's up to you. I would say my rule of thumb is don't be shy. And this is the whole point of the painting, right? We want to emphasize the sculpture. All right. Let me see if I can bring this out. Always these. There we go. That might be better. Can we see the bottom now? Can we see the whole painting? Yes. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Again, trifold. So I'm going to give myself a little hint as to where the creases are. Now, if you want, you can do straight lines all the way down. Like here's my first crease. Here's my other crease. Okay. Just to give yourself an idea of where those, maybe you can't see that. You can do a straight line, you can do dots, okay? But that's my trifold right there. All right, so the first trifold, the first third here, I'm focusing right here. I've got part of the W and part of the A. Okay, so again, this is what we're capturing in that first third. All right, and my first move is going to be this beautiful angle right here, this obtuse angle. That's all I'm doing first, and I'm going to use my guide points as my start and end. All right. Whoops. Okay. Everything is fixable. That's that obtuse angle. I don't know if you can see that in the video. I'm going to try to make it darker for you guys. Again, I would do it lighter in your world. All right. Again, I'm in this first third. I'm in this first third here. And if we just, excuse me, if we ignore the, oh, this might be helpful. We ignore the next 2/3. I'm using a light blue. The question is, what color are you using? I'm using a light blue, and it's darker than I would do it if I were painting this, but as a demo, as a teaching painting, I wanted it a bit darker so you can see it. But this is just light blue, so blue and white. All right, so I'm just focusing on this first third, and the W now just looks like a V. So I'm going to complete that V like this. And the top of that V on the right is a bit shorter than on the left. Yeah. So now I've got something like that. All right, looking back at our third here, now we've got this letter A. Okay. I've got the little triangle hole for the A that's visible right here. So I'm going to put that in. And then the little leg. And then the rest of that A gets lost behind the second trifold. So I'm not even going to worry about the second leg of the A. And I will complete the V at the top here, and then the right side of the A. So to recap, we just worked on that first third, and basically I've got half the W sitting on top of the A, and we're missing the right leg of the A because it's tucked behind the fold of the second third. How are we doing? Can we move on to the second third? Let me take a look. Thumbs up if we can move on to the second third. I see some people still working. Now, don't worry if your canvas is just full of all these lines that you fixed and you tried to shorten and erase it. Don't worry, okay? Just make sure you know which lines you're ending up with. All right, if we go back to our little sketch, in our second third, we see a little bit more of the W, okay? A little bit more of the W, and that pretty much finishes in the second third. And we see the R, okay? And what makes this sculpture so cool is that because it's reflecting the outside, sometimes the sculpture and the background blend together, and that's what happened over here with our R. It was reflecting green, and the behind the R is also green, and that kind of looks like it melted away. But that's what's so cool and kind of mind-bending about the sculpture. Blah 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 blah. Lots of talking. Hopefully we are ready to rock and roll. Let's start by finishing the W in the second third. So I'm going to give the little middle hump here. Finish up here. And I'm going to wind up connecting to that next fold. Something like that. And that W sits on top of the R. So again, I'm just going to kind of lightly sketch this out. And a lot of our magic happens in the reflection of the surroundings, but we're just kind of sketching things out for ourselves here. I'm just going to give my cat some treats. Otherwise, she's going to do that for an hour. Okay. Okay, baby. All right. With our last third, I want to focus on the perspective right here. The top of the E is going to be a little bit angled upwards. And on the base as well. And in the last third here, the two E's are sitting on top of one another. And instead of being square, they kind of angle, they point the ends here and down here as well. It's at an angle, it's not a square. And where the E's sit on top of one another, we also see that point. So I just want to bring your attention to that. So the two E's have pointy tops and bottoms. And those two pointies, those two pointy things come together right here as well.
Is it a straight angled line from the top of the W to the top of the E, or because in that other painting, it looks like there's like a jagged edge?
Are you talking about this right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an error right there. That's a floating piece of green. So actually that's a good point. Let's flatten the final leg of that W, and then from there we curve upwards. Not curve, we angle upwards.
Thank you.
Good question. Yes. And just to make my life a little bit easier, I'm gonna find my center so I know where these E's live. And then I can start sketching in my letters. All right, I'm going to do a little bit of talking as you're finishing up. Again, mine is maybe darker than what yours looks like. It's a little sketchy, meaning it's not precise, it's not perfect, and that's totally fine. We're just kind of seeing where everything is in space. It's really important to be able to know where those two folds are, okay? Because that dictates all these cool, crazy reflections, right? What makes the sculpture so interesting to look at. All right, so make sure you know where those creases are, those folds. So that's where our reflections will kind of help us. It'll help tell us where the reflections are. And the first thing that we're going to do, just because it's a lighter color, is we're going to show in the glass, the stainless steel, whatever it is, show where it reflects sky, and then where it reflects itself, the letters. Okay. So for example, in my original sketch here, the top of the W is reflecting sky. Okay.
the R, a bit of the R is reflecting sky. And then, super cool, part of the W is reflecting the E, which is reflecting sky. Okay, that's where we get this funky blue E. Okay, that's there because it is reflecting the E over here, which is itself reflecting sky. Okay, so I'm going to make a light blue to show that sky reflection. And here, don't fret too much about perfection. Okay, this is a crazy sculpture. It is a crazy painting. There's no rule, only when you reflect the E, right? You want to make sure that the little arms of the E are lined up with the arms of the actual E. Okay. I'm just kind of sketching a little bit of sky reflecting. Yes, I will repeat. Where can I begin? Yeah, how far back should I go? I'm mixing blue because we are the reflection part. Yeah, so I'm starting with blue to show that this sculpture is reflecting sky. So for example, this blue tip over here is reflecting the sky behind us. So is this part here. This E is actually kind of a gray blue because the sky over there, not behind us, is kind of, I don't know, a little bit grayer. Okay. But then the reflection of this E, for whatever reason, was bluer in the W. I don't know if that's helpful. This is where it gets kind of like, whoa. But important, I think, for the painting is to make sure that the E reflects, the arms of the E are in line with the arms of the E. And I'll do that right here. Okay. W got kind of wonky. All right. Got a little wonky right there, but bear with me. Oh, this is gonna be green anyway. So sorry, I'm mumbling to myself. So with that blue, I would say just try to have fun with where the sky is. I can show you where I had mine in the original. Okay. Again, it's gonna feel really weird and wonky and wrong. But once we get everything filled in, I promise you will feel better about your sculpture. Okay. And in terms of the outlining the edges, we're going to do that kind of as our final step. So don't worry about the edges that are either white or gray or blue. We'll take care of those kind of as our last step. Give yourselves a pat on the back for sticking around. This is difficult. But the good news is everyone's going to know what it is, right? Even if it doesn't look exactly like a photo. This is artistic interpretation. Have another drink of that adult beverage. Everything will be fine.
So is that darker part, I can't really tell on your painting right in front of us, but that the reflection of the E, that's supposed to be darker than the E, right?
Right, it's at least a different color, and that's based on this photograph that I was looking at. So it was, whatever it was a different blue, you know, because I guess one is a reflection of sky and one is a reflection of something reflecting sky. So for whatever reason, this looked a little bit grayer to me on the right, and this looked brighter to me. But I would think that as long as the blues are different, you'll get that same effect. That makes sense. And this should be probably a bit straighter there. I think the next step will help us start to see this come together. And what we've got, all of this dark green is the sculpture reflecting a tree. I'm not sure if it's the tree that's hanging out over here or something else, but it is reflecting some dark foliage. And that, I think, will help us kind of see things come together. So when I'm done with the blue stuff, I can wipe off any excess paint, give my brush a rinse, and then I'm going to mix up a dark green. So for me, that means blue, yellow, and a smooch of black. For you, it might mean adding a little smooch to a green that you already have. Again, I can show you in general where I had these certain areas on the sculpture, but this is a tree, it's foliage. We don't need to get too worked up about, you know, perfect foliage, right? I just kind of want to show where I believe this tree was being reflected. Okay. Again, I've wiped off excess paint from my brush. I gave it a good clean rinse. And I'm going to mix up a dark green for myself, which for me is blue and yellow and a smooch of black. And if I go to my sketch, let's start, just because I think it helps my brain, I'm just kind of covering up the other 2/3 here. So in the first third, I've got sky and I've got this white area, and that's actually just really, really light sky. Maybe it's a cloud. Okay. So I'm going to leave that a little bit exposed. And then I'm just going to start filling in the rest of this W here, and it goes right down into, whoops, it goes right down into the A. Trying to figure out the best way to do this here. Whoop. It's a little bit of the foliage indicating there. And something like that. And then actually at the foot of this A here, we're going to do this later. The foot of this A is actually reflecting the base itself, which is kind of neat. So we'll tend to that later. Okay, but this is basically what I've got with that dark foliage on the first third. Okay, and I always say, don't worry about your painting not looking like mine. Mine doesn't even look like mine. So everything is going to be different. Oh, the dark, so the dark, I got a question in the chat, sorry. The dark color is a dark green. So for me, I mixed blue and yellow and then added a smooch of black to get it darker. But yeah, it's a really, really dark green. It might even look black on the screen right now, but is just a dark, dark green. So adding a little smooch of black to whatever green we've got going on. And I'm just kind of moving on to the next third, playing around, looking at my original sketch here. Got something going on up here in the W, and then a lot of the W in the second third is just in this dark green. Hang in there, folks. I know it looks weird, but I don't know. Hopefully you're seeing it kind of come together right now, because I'm seeing it come together a little bit in mine. Taking care of the R here. All right, and I'm going to move on to that last third with those E's. And looking at my original sketch here, it almost takes up the entire middle leg and down into the second. All right, I'm going to take a moment to pause here. This is the dark green. And the next step, I'll take a pause, but the next step will be to start to fill in this background foliage. Okay. That is going to help make some of these letters pop. We can also add some of that lighter green to our actual reflections. Okay. But here's where we kind of fill in the background. And again, it's going to really kind of start to come together. And again, don't worry about things kind of getting lost, right? That's the beauty of this sculpture, is that, you know, am I looking at reflection? Am I looking at, you know, reality? What's happening here? So don't worry about things getting kind of lost, especially down here. Okay. But again, that's going to be our next move, to get a lighter green and start working on that background stuff. But I will take a pause just to make sure everyone's moving right along, doing okay. I think I'm going to take a little peek if anybody wants to share what we've got. Oh, I forgot to give a warning. I usually give a warning. That's my fault, Christina. Yeah. Don't dip your brush in your drink, and don't drink your paint water. Oh, Lori Kennedy. Yes, I'm seeing it. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, Team Sean Wolf. These are looking great. Yes. Oh, do you see it? I hope you guys see it. I mean, but you see that the sculpture is coming together. These look great. Yes. Looking good. Love it, love it. Again, like I said, everyone's going to know what it is. Everyone's going to know what it is. Looking good. Rachel, looking good, looking good. Love it. I can only see so many of you at a time, so don't feel bad if I'm not seeing yours right away. I do try to click through as best I can. Oh, 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 I just clicked past one. Joyce K. and Janae. Jenna? She nods politely. Looking good. All right. Again, I'm going to try to talk slowly. I'm mixing a lighter green to fill in my background foliage. So for me, that's just yellow and blue. Actually, I think I'm going to wipe off my brush and clean it first. That would be wise. All right, so now with this lighter green, I'm going to tend to all of these background areas in between the lettering, right? And again, it's foliage, it's green, it's not going to be perfect. Have fun with those brush strokes, little tap, tap, tap. See, just going to fill in this hole in the R here. Just having fun. We're having fun, right? Tap, tap, tap. Things start coming together. Very exciting. And in some cases, I get this foliage, this green, this lighter green right in the letter. For example, in the R. And from here, I'm also having fun, you know, even going away from the letters, finding these little trees here and there. Again, I love just kind of tapping my brush to see what kind of foliage I can come up with. We are doing it. I am keeping an eye on the time. I think this was scheduled for 7 to 9. Is that right? Let me see. So I think what's best just in terms of time is I'm going to kind of zip through and I'll talk as much as I can to kind of say what's happening, what's coming, what I'm doing. But I do want to make sure we wrap up by 9, just being respectful of everybody's time. And then, of course, you can always find the recording on the website. Okay, so I'm just tending to my background foliage here. All right, and really my my next steps, I'm going to tend to the tree on the left. All right, do love me a good tree. And to do that tree trunk, I just use straight black. Just use straight black here. And just going to pull that down. Let's see, right here. Don't be shy. And from there, I can start to pull out branches. Don't be shy with those branches. I'm going to go right near the sculpture itself. Just giving little indications of branches. A lot of that is going to get covered up with foliage anyway. So there's my tree. Can't help it. I love adding branches. Okay, so that was just straight black on the tree. Again, straight black on the tree trunk and the branches. And then I can dress it up with some more foliage. Again, just using my brush as a little stamp. Not being shy about different shades of green. Really filling that in, fleshing it out. Again, I'm moving really quickly because I just want to keep an eye on the time here. I think this is scheduled from 7 to 9, so just want to make sure that we respect everyone's time here. And I'm just filling in this tree. Might move to a big brush, whatever brush you like for your foliage. Something like that. That looks pretty cool. Something like that. All right. Doesn't it come together with the greenery? I think it sort of comes together with the greenery here. Okay. I can make trees forever, so I need to just restrain myself. What else have we got? Let's move on to, or I will move on. You still might be working. That's totally fine. I want to start outlining, right? So this pediment or base that it's sitting on, I want to outline that in gray. And that's going to help make that structure pop. And let's see, something like this. Boom. Right, and then on this edge too. So just outlining that structure. And you can add some, I'm not quite sure what this base really looks like, but I'm kind of adding like little bricks, I guess. And in the front. Okay, like so. Okay. Another little detail. Let's see. No, I think I'm good there. A little detail that will help with our structure is the shadow cast by the structure right on top. So you have, you know, the legs of the letters have a little shadow that gets cast. So that's a dark gray too. Might add a little bit of red just to make it a little bit more brown. Something like, I'm just casting a shadow like this. That. Okay, so there's our shadow. What else? I think I'm gonna play with some shadow back here. Again, this is, believe it or not, this is a painting that you can just kind of play with, especially the foliage in the back. Can't help myself. Moved really quickly. Little things here and there and everywhere. Little outline on our sidewalk over here, maybe. Okay. I can't help it. I'm going to add more foliage right over here. All right. And then I think the last little detail is, let me get my sketch here. The edges of the sculpture shining in the sunlight is basically what's happening here. So I want to make sure I give some of that shiny edge. For me, it's emphasized in the R. Again, for whatever reason, the way the sculpture is designed and the way it sits in the sun, for whatever reason, that part was getting shiny. So I'm going to tend to that there, especially, and even here, and a little bit in the E. Okay. So I will do that now. Again, you can go back to the recording to catch up. I think we're doing okay with time. I'll have a little bit of time if anyone has any questions, and I can repeat anything. I'm rinsing my brush right now because I'm going to use pure white to touch on those edges of the sculpture. Right. Yeah, I'm just sketching this white area right here. And here. A little bit here. And this white edging can really help make your letters pop in case they're getting a bit lost. Okay. A bit here. And then I just noticed this will help too. In my upper E, again, for whatever reason, that edge is looking like a darker gray blue. So I will add that. Again, I'm so sorry about the time, but we can go back to the recording to catch up on what you've missed. And I will try to do a quick verbal recap as well. Good. Okay, I think that's all she wrote on my end. All right. Oh, I'm so glad. Oops. All right. Once again, I'll do a little recap. So we filled in the background foliage with a lighter green than that dark stuff that we had in the letters. And then I moved over to my tree. The tree is, the trunk is just straight black. The branches are straight black. Have fun kind of tapping your foliage, okay? Then I had some dark gray to outline the pediment here and the sidewalk, right? I made, with that gray, I added a bit of red to give it a brown warm color to get the shadow here. Added some pure white edging to some of those letters, okay? A little dark edging to this E over here. And I think that's all she wrote on this one, friends. I want to thank you all for joining me tonight. This was super challenging. I didn't want to say too much of how challenging it was at the start, but this is probably the hardest thing that we've ever done, the hardest thing that I've ever taught. But it actually was suggested in one of our paint events. I don't know how many months ago, but someone in the chat actually suggested we do the We Are sculpture. And I thought, oh my gosh, no. But I decided to do it. Why not? I know that some of you have been regulars and repeat painters. So I thought, let's do it. I can stick around if there's any questions, and I would love to see your paintings if you're willing to share. Again, recording will be available to finish what you need. I hope you guys had fun. And again, sleep on it. Tomorrow, you're going to love it. You're going to be impressed. Oh, these look great. Oh my gosh, you're going to impress so many people with this. These look great. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. These look so good. I'm so happy and so impressed. What a challenge. And you guys totally stepped up. I love it. These are great. You're going to impress so many people with this. Oh my gosh, these look beautiful. Awesome work. Beautiful, beautiful. Oh my gosh, these are wonderful. Oh, since the pandemic. Oh my gosh, yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. They do look great, right? Yes, Sarah, they do. Thanks for sticking it out, everyone. These look great. All right. I guess it's Abby
Thank you
is
for
there.
joining, and thank you,
Ah, good.
Jackie. This was great. Everyone's paintings look fabulous.
Yeah.
Like I said before, if you want to access this on our website, it will be available within the coming weeks. If you want to hop on there and finish up your painting or do any last minute touch-ups. And yeah, if you have any other questions, feel free to ask it now. I'll probably end this within the next 2 minutes. I think it'll end itself, but
Yeah.
just in case.
Okay,
What
good.
is the website? Just the PSAA?
Yep, it's Penn State Alumni Association website. You could just type in Penn State Alumni Association on Google. It should pop up, and then go to events and it'll say previous events at the top tab. You can click there and it should be archived there.
Great.
Okay.
This was
All
fun.
right.
At least my son knew it said "we are." So I have zero art skills. So
There you
that's
go.
one thing. There
All
we
it
go.
takes is
He
one
recognized
person.
what it was.
Yes.
So,
Good. It only takes one person to appreciate it.
yeah. So he just graduated in December, so
Oh,
he should
wonderful.
recognize it.
Wonderful. Yeah.
But thank you very much. This is
All
was a
right. Thank you. All right, Abby and everyone, I want to thank you again, and I'll say goodnight, and we'll see you next time for the next one.
All right. Bye, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks, Jackie. Bye.